Part 30. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 291. Zhao Kamang and Sangu were able to communicate, and Zuyun was already used to it. Even being able to roar twice with the red candle beast is not surprising. But the current situation is that not only did he hear Zhao Kamang and Sangu talking about people, but even the red candle beast also joined in. I saw Zhao Kamang yelling at Sangu, "Old dog, smell it quickly, where did this thing come from?" Sangu also said loudly, "How do I know where it comes from? This is clearly a chalcedony mine. Get him into the water quickly." Just when Zuyun was stunned and wondered why they could speak human language, the red candle beast said quietly from the side, "The chalcedony mine is quite good. If you don't want it, just give it to me." This frightened Zuyun, of course not because he was afraid of being eaten, but because even the red candle beast could speak. Is this a monster becoming a spirit? Goblin. Suddenly, Zuyun changed back to his human form. He stared at the red candle beast and said, "Can you say another word?" Suddenly, the three dogs were frightened and fell into the lake. Zhao Kamang seemed to have something stuck in his throat and couldn't make a sound. The red candle beast was also frightened by the scene, and subconsciously took 2 steps back, his eyes full of fear and avoidance. There was a low roar coming from his mouth. Zuyun frowned and heard the sound of 3 dogs getting up from the water, woof woof. Turning around, he saw the 3 dogs shaking off the water on their bodies and barked twice more. Zuyun's brows tightened and he said in a deep voice, "Speak humanly." "Woof woof. Didn't you just say something very good? Why are you barking like a dog now?" Zuyun looked dissatisfied, feeling that as his master, he was being seduced by a demon, a dog, and it's like a trick. Zhao Kamang finally regained his breath at this time, and quickly walked ashore from the water, stretched out a paw and started writing on the beach. Zuyun also gradually calmed down. Was it just an illusion? Zhao Kamang's writing speed was much faster than before, but despite this, it took more than 10 breaths to write a sentence. "Master, did you hear our exchange just now?" Zuyun nodded and said, "Yes, I heard you let Sangu sniff me, and I also heard Sangu tell you to get me into the water." The words fell. There was deathly silence all around. Only Red Canned Lemon was panting nervously. Zhao Kamang and Sangu could understand Zuyun's words. This briefly repeated the meaning of their words. How could they not be surprised? As for the red candle beast, it seemed like it was the same as before, still unable to understand what Zuyun was saying. Zuyun, on the other hand, turned his head towards the red candle beast and continued, "I also heard it say, 'Eat me.'" Sangu was beyond shocked, and Zhao Kamang wrote on the ground with great excitement, "Master, could it be that you turned into ore?" Zuyun was stunned for a moment, thinking that this was really possible. Because the golden escape technique first turned him into an ore, and the second level turned him into a metal spirit body. Doesn't it mean that as long as you are not a human being, you can understand what they say? This is amazing. Thinking of this, Zuyun immediately recited the golden escape formula silently. In an instant, he turned into a piece of ore with the same color as the lake beach. "Hey, why is it yellow this time? Or is it brown water stone?" In his ears, Sangu's surprised sounds came, and Zuyun became even more certain that this golden escape technique had a protective color effect. At the same time, it also proved that it is really possible to understand the words of monsters and spirit beasts using this golden escape technique. He recited the mantra silently again, and this time Zuyun changed into his second form. "Red yellow brown water mineral spirit. Say something and listen." Zuyun's body was suspended above the ground and he said with a smile to Zhao Kamang, "Master, what a magical power you have. It's so mysterious." Zhao Kamang murmured, "Ha ha ha, yes, really good." This is the golden escape technique among the 5 elements escape techniques. I have just practiced it, and I didn't know it had such a wonderful effect. Zuyun laughed loudly and said excitedly, "Master, can you really hear us?" Zhao Kamang was in tears. He finally didn't have to write anymore. Sangu sniffed it left and right several times before saying, "Master, this has changed and it doesn't have the same smell as before." Zuyun was even more happy. This meant that after he went out, he immediately used the golden escape technique, and he would not be discovered by those in the pill formation stage. But the premise is not to become that rare or otherwise, I would be taken back to practice and there would be no place to cry. Then, Zuyun drifted towards the red candle beast. Only a plop was heard, and the red candle beast knelt down on its front legs. "Master, I didn't know it was you." The red candle beast also speaks human words. This time, Zuyun was completely sure. "So, can I also hear what Xiao Brown and Xiao Hui say?" Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but his eyes lit up. He didn't know enough about the Peeper realm, but he also knew that the stronger the aura was, the more monsters and spiritual beasts with relatively higher intelligence would appear. "Can I trick some into sending them to this ranch so that they can help me in the future?" "It's okay. Those who don't know are not guilty." Zuyun was in a very good mood. He waved his hand to the red candle beast with a smile and said, "How is your recovery from your injury?" "Returning to the master, I have swallowed a lot of demon pills, and I am almost ready. But without the fire spiritual power, my cultivation will be much slower. Then when I have time, I will go to the volcanic belt and let you practice well." Hearing this, Red Candle Beast was overjoyed. Originally, it was beaten to death by Zuyun and then brought here. The unfamiliar environment, coupled with Zhao Kamang, whose strength is comparable to the late stage of foundation building, makes the Red Candle Beast inevitably feel a little scared. But fortunately, Zuyun also specially ordered Zhao Kamang, and the Red Candle Beast was not bullied, and even became familiar with them. They also knew that this was Zuyun's outer space, and there was no other existence that could threaten them. Only then did Red Candle Beast feel completely at ease. "Thank you, Master, I will practice hard and live up to Master's high expectations." The Red Candle Beast lowered its head completely. Zuyun patted his head gently, and when he was about to turn back into his human form, he suddenly heard an anxious neighing sound. "It's Xiao Hui." Sangu shrugged his nose and said quickly. Listening to the sound, it seemed that it was still a little far away. Zuyun floated towards the top of the short hill, but he felt strange in his heart. This pasture is his own, and there are no other animals, but Xiao Hui is barking like this, as if something is hunting him. When he floated to the top of the mountain, Zuyun saw Xiao Hui running wildly, looking like he had exhausted all his strength. But there was no movement behind it. "Strange, what's going on?" Zuyun whispered and floated forward, followed by Zhao Kamang and others. They rarely heard Xiao Hui act like this, and there was fear in his voice, as if he had been greatly frightened. "It's not good, little brown, my stomach hurts. I'm rolling. I'm screaming. Xiao Hui came here not long ago. Although he was cleansed by spiritual power and often drank from the spiritual spring in the lake, his intelligence was only slightly enlightened and his speech was incoherent. Little brown." Zuyun was stunned and asked, "Why does a good person have a stomachache?" He also knew now that after he transformed into a metal spirit body, he could communicate normally with these monsters and spirit beasts. "I don't know. He has a stomachache. Call me, tell Lao Zhao and Lao Go to go and have a look." Xiao Hui shook his head and didn't take a second look at the metal spirit body that Zuyun transformed into. In its subconscious mind, since it appears here, it is not an enemy. What's more, Zuyun was followed by Zhao Kamang and the others. "Lead the way and go have a look." Zuyun frowned and said immediately. Little Brown's role is not great now, but it is still a spirit horse. When it is not suitable for flying, you can ride on the spirit horse and use the 11 Lian Dan to travel in a low profile. Furthermore, Zuyun was able to take over this ranch, and Xiao Zong was indispensable. Xiao Hui turned around without hesitation and ran away along the way he came. Zhao Kamang and the others also hurriedly followed. Soon, they ran more than 10 miles away, and Xiao Hui's heart-rending roar could be heard, as if he was suffering from great pain. Zuyun's face froze. Logically speaking, no matter spiritual beasts or demonic beasts, it is impossible to get sick. Xiao Hui seems to be in trouble. Running quickly following the sound, Zuyun finally saw Xiao Hui. I saw it lying on the ground and rolling around, and the ordinary spiritual grass on the ground was rolled to pieces by it. Little Brown, what's wrong with you? Zuyun shouted quickly. It hurts, my stomach hurts. Little Brown wailed. He was transformed by the master. Don't move around. The master will look after it for you. Zhao Kamang was afraid that Xiao Zhuang would hurt Zuyun if he struggled, so he quickly yelled. Master, my stomach feels like it's going to explode. It hurts so much. While shouting, Xiao Brown also began to control his body, but it was very difficult. Although it stopped rolling, you could see it was shaking all over. Don't worry, let me take a look. Zuyun's body moved and he immediately returned to his human form. Then his hand was already on Xiao Brown's belly, and his spiritual consciousness came in. Just for a moment, Zuyun's body shook, as if he was attacked. He took several steps back, his eyes full of fear. Even the corners of his mouth overflowed with bright red blood. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 292. Ho ho ho. Zhao Kamang roared suddenly, but Zuyun, who had returned to his human form, could not understand what Zhao Kamang meant. Even the 3 dogs and the red candle beast were jumping anxiously beside them. They all thought it was Xiao Zhuang who hurt Zuyun. Get out of your way. Zuyun's expression was extremely solemn, and he stopped the 3 beasts who were about to charge forward, and then stared at Xiao Zhuang. At this time, Xiao Brown was motionless. When his spiritual consciousness penetrated in, he immediately realized that Xiao Brown's pain was entirely caused by another spiritual power. Even after the spiritual power discovered Zuyun, it actually wanted to follow Zuyun's hand and rush directly into his body. Fortunately, Zuyun's soul was strong enough and his reaction was fast enough. He made a prompt decision. Even if his soul was backlashed, he had to stop the investigation. This injury was actually caused by himself. And that spiritual power came from Wang Jianren, whose golden elixir was accidentally shot into Xiao Zong's body by Zuyun. At that time, Wang Jianren and Luo Yanran broke out of the confinement of the wooden house and almost exhausted their spiritual power. After entering Little Brown's belly again, he was suppressed by Little Brown. But he is still at the peak of the late stage of pill formation, and his temporary suppression does not mean that he will never be able to turn over. In addition, there was abundant spiritual power in the pasture, and Xiao Zhu didn't know how to deal with the golden elixir stored in his body. This gave Wang Jianren a chance to breathe. As time passed, Wang Jianren began to restore spiritual power in Xiao Zong's body. Although the speed is very slow, the sand is gathered into a tower, and a little becomes a lot. Finally today, he broke through Xiao Zong's suppression and planned to break out of Xiao Zong's body. Xiao Zong could feel that something was about to burst out of his body, and in desperation, he fought against it. Subconsciously, it knew that if the golden elixir was allowed to break out of the body, it would not die but would be disabled. The instinct of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages made Xiao Zhu desperately block it, but since Wang Jianren was ready to rush out, he was naturally fully prepared. Xiao Zhu knew that sooner or later he would be unable to stop him, so he asked Xiao Hui to call Zhao Kamang comes to help. And at this time, Wang Jianren already knew that the spiritual consciousness just came from Zhu Yun. He didn't expect this situation, so he stayed dormant for the time being. Xiao Zhuang seemed to have passed out and was motionless. Zhu Yun's eyes were also staring straight at Xiao Brown. Wang Jianren knew him, but he didn't know Wang Jianren. Faced with this inexplicable danger, Zhu Yun did not dare to act rashly. The same is true for Wang Jianren. Even if he forcefully breaks Xiao Zhuang's horse's belly at this time, the consumption of his spiritual energy will be quite large. He only has one golden elixir, and it is extremely slow to recover his spiritual power without a body. Just like that, Zhu Yun and Wang Jianren had a stalemate. Those pill-forming stages in the outside world have long since dispersed. Similarly, in order to avoid causing a wave of monsters, they all stayed down and began a carpet-like search. When there are many people, they are not afraid of the beast tide, but now they are not afraid to act separately. Tang Tiangang was furious and shouted and cursed at another group of people who came from the Luo sect through the array. For a time, the complaints came back to his ears. After going back and forth like this, Tang Tiangang became even more furious, thinking that Zhu Yun clearly only had one stage of foundation building, but he had so many methods. He had sent so many pills but could not catch him in the later stage, which made him, who was extremely proud, experience frustration for the first time. Death, everyone will die. Everyone will die. Tang Tiangang was extremely angry and kept smashing things in the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Fortunately, there was no one, otherwise no one would have believed that Tang Tiangang was so violent. At the same time, in Wanjian Mountain, Sun Qiniang finally regained her energy. Jian Tianming had the experience of practicing here, but for Sun Qiniang, the feeling was deeper. After 5 days of cultivation, only 1 day has passed in the outside world. And the loss of lifespan only comes from the outside world. No wonder Wanjian Mountain is so powerful. How can the Haori sect survive? Sun Qiniang murmured and stood up, but her eyes were extremely clear. She wanted the holy object, but she didn't dare to ask for it. She was afraid that during the refining process, her true identity would be exposed, and she was also afraid that during the refining process, the sword's destiny would be revived. Although there was no sound of Jian Tianming in the Zi mansion, she could still feel a faint trace of ice spiritual power. At that time, she used a secret method to regenerate, and she directly turned into an ice spiritual root. After several years of hard training, even if she now turned into a golden spiritual root, her sensitivity to the spiritual power of the spiritual system has not diminished at all. Sun Qiniang guessed that maybe Jian Tianming had left a trace of his soul, and it was not necessarily hidden. But now, there is only one choice between Zhu Yun's whereabouts and the refining of the holy objects. Sun Qiniang chose to find Zhu Yun first. Slowly getting up, Sun Qiniang left the sacred object space and walked to the sword-hilt platform. I've met the mountain owner. When Jian San saw it was Sun Qiniang, he quickly came up to say hello. Where are the other elders? Sun Qiniang did not see anyone else. Sword 1 and Sword 2 are not there. Back to the mountain master, the first elder and the second elder went to the sword body secret room. It was Li Chengan who was looking for them. Li Chengan was caught here. Sun Qiniang was stunned. Yes, master. Li Chengan, who is at the peak of the late Jindan stage, may break through to the Yuanying stage at any time. To be on the safe side, we captured him and imprisoned him here. Previously, he asked the guarding disciples to pass on the message that he wanted to make a deal with our Wanjian Mountain, and he swore that if the deal was successful, he would be willing to be used by Wanjian Mountain. Sun Qiniang frowned and said, do you know what they are talking about? I don't know. Jian San shook his head and said, the first and second elders knew that you were practicing and recovering in the holy space, so they didn't dare to disturb you. They told me to tell you after you came out to talk to Li Chengan first, and then you can make the decision. Sun Qinyang's eyes flickered, and she said, let the first and second brothers decide. I still need to be in seclusion during this period. Ah-san, you can convey this message when the time comes. After that, she said no more and jumped off the hill platform. After landing, she came to Jianbei. Master. Jianbei was very respectful. Open the array gate. I still need to go into seclusion. By the way, I have learned something this time. If you hear any unusual movement in the forbidden area, don't come in to disturb. Sun Qinyang planned to drive the array to try this time. In order to prevent accidents, she said so. Yes, Mountain Master, can't we see elders Jianyi and Jian'er? What do you think? Sun Qinyang showed her majesty. Jianba hurriedly bowed his head, and then opened the array gate. When Jianba closed the array gate, Sun Qinyang was slightly relieved. She was only in the early stage of Jindan, while Jianba was in the late stage of Jindan. After forcing herself to calm down, Sun Qinyang looked at the teleportation array in front of her. With a flash of her figure, she stepped into the array with a sword step. With a flash of determination in her eyes, Sun Qinyang drove her spiritual power and rushed towards the main array eye. At this time, Jianyi looked at Li Chengan with a blank expression and sneered, Li Chengan, you are a big shot in Yazhu, but you asked us Wan Jianshan to help you find someone. Li Chengan raised his head slightly and said, Jianyi, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit, there is nothing to say. I, Li Chengan, am different from those ruthless people in Wan Jianshan. Yazhu is now the world of Wan Jianshan. It is not difficult to help find my son? Of course, if you don't believe it, I can also swear an oath of heaven, and I will be at the disposal of Wan Jianshan in the future. Li Chengan, according to what I heard, your son has become a fool, right? Jianyi narrowed his eyes. Although not many people knew about this, Wan Jianshan had spies in Haori sect, so Jianyi naturally knew it. The implication was that he suspected that Li Chengan had other purposes. What's the point of finding a fool? He couldn't think of it. Ha ha ha, Li Chengan laughed first, then put away his smile and said, Jianyi, no matter how stupid my son is, he still has my blood, Li Chengan. You treat him like an ant, but I treat him like a treasure. Find him and keep him in Wanjian Mountain, then you will have one more peak late Jindan stage. Isn't this deal worthwhile? He didn't shy away from this question at all, and even felt that this was something he could show off. Because the elders of Wanjian Mountain have no offspring. I can't make the decision on this matter, I need to ask the mountain master. Jianyi was indeed very tempted by Li Chenjan's proposal, but now, Wanjian Mountain is not a place where he can have the final say. Just as he finished speaking, Jianba's urgent call suddenly came from outside the house. Elder Jianyi, the forbidden area has changed drastically, and the mountain master is missing. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 293. What? Jianyi's face changed. He had just told Li Chengan that he would ask the mountain master for instructions. But before he could even take a breath, Jianbei shouted that the mountain master was missing. Li Chengan, let's talk about this later. As he said that, he rushed out of the secret room and hung in front of Jianbei. Tell me, what's going on? Jianyi shouted sternly, expressionless, but intimidating. Elder Yi, follow me. Jianbei whispered, and quickly fell towards the forbidden area. Jianyi and the other man followed closely behind. As soon as they landed, Jianbei opened the array gate and walked straight in. You said that the forbidden area had undergone a dramatic change. Xianxia frowned. The mountain master said earlier that he had found the bottleneck of breakthrough and wanted to continue to retreat here, and ordered me not to disturb him. Just before a cup of tea, I felt an inexplicable spiritual power fluctuation coming from the formation. I wanted to go in to investigate, but thinking about the mountain master's instructions, I wondered if she had just broken through. However, after the spiritual power fluctuation reached the peak, it suddenly disappeared. I called out a few times outside the formation, but got no response, and I became alert. But I didn't dare to open the formation door. After a while, I felt more and more that something was wrong, so I opened the formation door at the risk of being reprimanded by the mountain master, and I saw the mountain master standing in this formation. Kanpeka slowly told the whole story. Xianxia said anxiously, "Where is the mountain master?" I just called the mountain master, and the mountain master disappeared instantly. I don't know where he went. And the array pattern of this array also dissipated at the same time. I hurried to the platform, and Elder Jian-san said that you are in the secret room of the sword body. Jian-ba took a deep breath and said, "Elder Yi, could it be that the mountain master has comprehended this ancient array?" Jian-yi did not answer, but said to Jian-er behind him, "Gather Jian-san's Iwu to discuss in the Holy Land." After speaking, he immediately rushed out of the Forbidden Land array and flew towards the hilt of the sword. Jian-er looked at Jian-ba with an inexplicable expression, sighed, and turned away. After a cup of tea. In the holy space, in the small pavilion next to the sword pool. I believe you have already known the news that the mountain master suddenly disappeared. Jian-yi glanced over. Everyone nodded. Jian-er said, "Elder Yi, we are not outsiders, just speak directly. Do you remember Tang Tiangang?" When this was said, everyone frowned, and Jian-san said, "Elder Yi, do you think the disappearance of the mountain master is related to Tang Tiangang?" Jian-yi shook his head and said, "Tang Tiangang disappeared inexplicably that year. When we last knew that he was still alive, he had already built a Xian city in Chuzhou." Jian-san pondered for a moment and said, "Then Elder Jian-yi means that the mountain master may also be in Chuzhou." Jian-yi nodded and said, "Tang Tiangang is proficient in formations. He may be the only one who has achieved formation attainments in thousands of years. He must have known the magical uses of this ancient formation, so he escaped through this formation. Otherwise, how could he avoid the guard of the second elder back then?" He looked at the second elder and said, "Hundreds of years ago, the second elder was only in the early stage of Jindan, responsible for the work of Jian-ba now." Jian-er nodded and said, "Yes, he disappeared without a trace." Jian-yi continued, "So, I guess this array is a teleportation array. Moreover, it is a teleportation array leading to Chuzhou." As soon as these words came out, the three elders after Jian-san stood up suddenly. Wanjian Mountain is also thousands of miles away from Chuzhou. If there is such a teleportation array, then can they unify Chuzhou? Don't get excited. Seeing the reactions of these people, Jian-yi waved his hand, motioning them to sit down, and then said, "Right now, we need to find the mountain master, and we also need to find someone to study how to drive this formation." First elder, Tang Tiangang studied it for so long back then. The second elder said with some embarrassment, but was interrupted by Jian-yi, "Second elder, I now suspect that Tang Tiangang has already studied this formation. It's just that he has a good life in Wanjian Mountain, so he didn't think about leaving. Do you still remember that someone from the Tang family broke in quietly back then?" Jian-er thought for a while, suddenly realized, and said, "So that's it? It just so happens that Wanjian Mountain has the momentum to unify Yezhou, so why not just occupy Chuzhou in one go?" Jian-yi stood up suddenly and said, "In addition to finding the mountain master, there are the following things that can be done along the way." Everyone hurriedly sat up straight. For more than 300 years, since Wang Jianren disappeared, they have become accustomed to Jian Yi's orders. The most important thing is that their Wanjian mountain is also gradually becoming stronger. First, since Tang Tiangang is our enemy, let's capture his Xian city. Second, the most mysterious place in Chuzhu is the Demon Refining Tower. It is said that there is a treasure hidden in the 9th floor. Third, it is the 10,000 mountains. At the end, Jian Yi's voice was extremely cold. Jian Er said in shock, "Brother Yi, the 10,000 mountains, are you going to destroy the descendants of the Ye family and fulfill the wishes of your ancestors? Second brother, why is the sword of Wanjian mountain inserted here? I know that there are only 2 of us left." The ancestor was slapped in the face by Ye Yang. As disciples of Wanjian mountain, we naturally have to accept it. Jian Yi's eyes were shining, and he said, "Chuzhu is thousands of miles away, and the 10,000 mountains are even farther. There are still thousands of miles from the periphery of the 10,000 mountains to the center." Although Ye Yang went to the Peeper realm after the hammer that year, and even now, it is more likely that he has reached the upper realm. But this is the great revenge of Wanjian mountain, and you and I are all responsible. Brother Yi, then this sword. Jian Er murmured. Second brother, you know the rules. This sword can only be owned by the mountain owner. The other 3 elders were confused and had no idea what they meant. Also, even if they are already core elders, they still have no access to such secretive things. But since the sword gave the order, they had to get these things done. Chuzhu was too far away before. But as long as the teleportation array is completed, everything will be no problem. Suddenly, they were extremely excited and full of sword intent. In Kendo, you need to constantly fight with others to progress faster. Okay, next, our Wanjianshan will aim at these 3 points and complete them one by one. Jian Yi waved his hand, and the 3 elders headed by Jian San immediately stood up and left. Brother Yi, what about me? Jian Er asked. You. Jian Yi showed a smile, you take Li Chengan and let him sneak into Red Flame City on the pretext of looking for his son. Jian Er frowned and said, is Li Chengan willing? He remembered that Li Chengan's request was that after finding his son, he would be used by Wang Jianshan. Tang Tiangang is a madman, Jian Yi said, Li Chengan is not a swordsman, so he will naturally relax his vigilance. Since he has decided to take over Xian City, it is time to find out what happened without further delay. Moreover, we only need to tell Li Chengan, there is news about his son, who is in Chuzhu. Do you think he will go or not? And if he is accompanied by you, how can he not believe it? Brother Yi, I understand. They are brothers who have practiced together in Wanjian Mountain for many years, so there is no need to say anything more. It was okay that Tang Tiangang didn't know Jian Er, but it happened that Jian Er was guarding the forbidden area that year. If this was recognized, something would inevitably happen, and it would also arouse Tang Tiangang's vigilance. Since Wang Jianren disappeared, Jian Yi also sent people to find Tang Tiangang. Unfortunately, all the disciples never returned. Just 200 years ago, Tang Tiangang asked someone to send him a storage bag. They are all the heads and natal swords of the missing disciples. This made Jian Yi know how deep Tang Tiangang's hatred for Wang Jianshan was. It's just that Xian City is too far away, and they are more than capable. If there are too many pill-forming periods sent there, who knows if other sects in Yeazhu will join forces to attack Wanjian Mountain. But now, Wanjian Mountain has unified Yeazhu and has the current teleportation array. Then, destroying Xian City is inevitable. Brother Yi, shall we meet Li Chengan again? Well, let's go. And at the junction of Yeazhu and Chuzhu, Chen Hua held Li Heiran, who was possessed by Luo Yanran's golden elixir but was still a little silly, with one hand and said, Big dog, they must not have thought of us running so far, right? The big dog's eyes were sharp and he said, Hua Zi, although you have escaped from Yezhu, we are only hearing about Chezhu. Having said this, he looked at Li Heiran again and sighed, besides, I don't know when Senior Luo will be able to fully possess him. Chen Hua was a little disappointed and said, Big dog, can you stop saying these depressing words? I'm reminding you that our strength is low and we are not qualified to see the mountains and rivers. Moreover, Senior Luo is for us, so we naturally have to protect him. Chen Hua nodded, looked back at Li Heiran who was still crying, and said, let's go. A group of 3 people finally set foot on the unknown Chezhu. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 294. South of Chezhu, Volcanic Belt. Li Emo was in a volcano, where he met Zuyun again. In the depression of the inner wall of the volcano, veins popped out on his forehead, and he kept shouting. Breakthrough, breakthrough, breakthrough for me. With the last roar, the hot air in the volcano exploded. With a bang, the volcano actually produced a gas explosion, and some volcanic wall stones that had been roasted for countless years fell off layer by layer, fell down, and smashed into the magma. At the same time, the magma began to surge, as if there was a huge red candle beast in it, stirring up the undercurrent. The surface of the magma was sometimes high and sometimes low, and the edge kept hitting the stone wall, taking away some volcanic rocks. These gravels were melted by the extremely high temperature and joined the magma. Looking at Li Emo again, he was red all over, and a vortex appeared in his lower abdomen. The extremely powerful suction force was absorbing the mixed fire spirit power here. Inhale, inhale for me, inhale more fire spiritual power for me. I want to save fellow Daoistja. After he successfully formed the golden elixir, Li Mo's mind went deep into his body, watching his golden elixir that was emitting flames from time to time, and he kept roaring in his heart. He didn't know how long he had been practicing here. But after coming here, he practiced non-stop. Originally, he was devoted to practicing. But after experiencing the tragedy of the sect being destroyed, his father's death, and being unable to return home, his mind has changed greatly. Even the original intention of cultivating immortals has changed. Originally, it was to inherit the Luo sect, and then let Li Tianxin break through to the nascent soul stage in the Peepa realm without distractions. But now, he only wants to rescue Zuyun. As for the Luo sect, he has no intention of inheriting it at all. All the elders have rebelled, and he wants to kill them to avenge his father. And without these elders, what is the point of inheriting the Luo sect? The enemies who left home came to kill him, and he was powerless to fight. Because of this, Li Emo changed his desire unconsciously. Under the urgency, he finally broke through to the Jindan stage. After he opened his eyes contentedly, his whole body was already emitting an extremely majestic momentum. Is this the power of the Jindan stage? Li Mo's eyes condensed, completely different from his previous expression. He gently spread his palm and whispered, Luo Kailan. A flame quickly rose from his palm, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into a Kailan and immediately jumped towards the magma. Except for Li Tian, no one knew that Li Emo was a single spiritual root of the fire system. Even Zuyun had never asked. Zuyun even thought that this was an ordinary cultivator who was stupid because of cultivation, and his talent must not be much better. Not every young master can inherit talent. After Kailan left his hand, his body grew rapidly. Compared with Zuyun's Luo dragon, the momentum is not much less. Under Li Mo's control, the Kailan rushed into the magma, but there was no movement. It seemed that the Kailan merged into the magma. Not bad, the control of the Jindan stage is many times stronger than the foundation building stage. Li Emo was overjoyed. He did it on purpose. Although the momentum was amazing, he actually controlled the spiritual power to disperse at the moment of entering the magma. If Zuyun was here, he would be shocked by Li Mo's control over the spiritual power. You know, Zhu Yun's soul strength has increased a lot, but when practicing the control of spiritual power, it is still stretched. It's time to help fellow deist Zhou. Li Mo raised his head and looked at the round sky, which was extremely blue. He took a casual step and took off. He is already in the Jindan stage, and he no longer needs his life tool to fly. However, just after flying out of the mountain pass, he suddenly felt a huge spiritual power coming from the foot of the volcano. The breath was not weaker than his. Why is there someone? Li Mo was shocked and subconsciously wanted to escape first, but he suddenly realized that the other party was only in the early stage of Jindan. Me too. He frowned slightly. In the past 100 years, no one in the Jindan stage has come here. Unless it's his enemy who left home. Thinking of this, Li Mo sneered in his heart. It just so happens that he doesn't know how strong he is, so he uses you to practice. With a sinking mind, Li Mo stretched out his palm, and the flames rose up, and another Kylin appeared. He just swung his hand, and the Kylin jumped down, and its body quickly grew larger. It rushed down along the slope of the volcano. The sudden fire startled Sun Qiniang, who had just woken up. She quickly took off into the air, dodged the attack of the fire Kylin, and looked directly at Li Mo. Who are you? Why did you hurt me for no reason? While speaking, she also took out a top-grade spiritual sword from the storage bag. This sword was given by Xianxia. Her original ice blue sword had long been destroyed. But her injuries had long been healed. But this one was not her natal magic sword. Because Xianxia told her that a top-grade magic sword was not worthy of her. Humph, you are here to find our Li family, right? Li Mo said coldly, you are only in the early stage of Jindan, and you dare to come here to seek revenge and death. After that, Li Mo clenched his right fist, stretched out two fingers and suddenly raised them upwards. The fire unicorn that missed the target did not disperse, but rushed back to the crater, jumped, and pounced on Sun Qiniang again. You are only in the early stage of Jindan, how dare you be so arrogant? Sun Qiniang felt severe pain all over her body, which was why she didn't attack at first. But seeing that Li Mo was going to attack without knowing right or wrong, she was immediately angry. She was not a good person to begin with, and she was even a robber before reincarnation. She dared to fight Jian Tianming several times, how could she allow others to bully her? Immediately, she took the sword and slashed at the fire Kirin with one sword. Hula! The fire Kirin was cut off by a sword and instantly dissipated. On the spirit sword, golden light flashed. Sun Qiniang twisted her waist and stabbed Li Mo's ribs in an instant. So fast. Li Mo was shocked. He didn't have much experience in fighting with others, let alone encountering a sword cultivator who was already stronger than the same realm. In addition, Sun Qiniang was decisive in killing. If she didn't attack, it would be a killing move. This sword was extremely exquisite. Li Wo shield. He didn't have time to fight back, but with a low shout, the energy in the golden elixir kept pouring out, and he instantly turned into a fireman. But this fire was like a substance, and Sun Qiniang's sword pierced through, making a crisp sound. Sun Qiniang was slightly stunned, but her hands did not stop. She thought to herself, isn't this a fool? Doesn't he know that sword cultivators are strong in attack and weak in defense, and use defense instead of attack? Although your fire shield is mysterious, it can only protect you temporarily. Several swords slashed on the fire shield, and Li Mo cried out in pain. How could he have thought that Sun Qiniang's attack would be so fierce? Is this an ordinary Jindan period? In the same realm, the single spiritual root of the fire system with the strongest attack attribute can't beat a sword user? In desperation, he wanted to retreat. Even if he wanted to take revenge, he could only save his life first. But all his spiritual power was used on the shield, so Li Mo didn't fly fast. Seeing that he wanted to run, Sun Qingyang was even less likely to let him go. She chased after him, slashing him with the sword from time to time. At the same time, she also discovered that this place was full of volcanoes. Most of them were silent, just gushing out hot air. But there were a few that were emitting thick smoke, and sometimes there was lava flowing out. And below, the ground was full of wounds, and from time to time there was fire pouring out. All these scenes were in sight, and Sun Qingyang was even more horrified. This is Chuzhu. So, did Zhu Yun also come to Chuzhu? The hanging heart finally relaxed a little. Looking at Li Mo, who was constantly beaten by her, Sun Qingyang showed a playful smile. Just in case someone is needed to inquire, beat him down first. After a few sword slashes, Li Mo was in great pain, and he couldn't think of a good way to escape for the time being, so he could only fly forward in a daze. Suddenly, a low shout came from behind. Sun Chaser Sword. As soon as the words fell, an incomparable amount of spiritual power followed, giving him a feeling as if the sun in the sky was shot down. And he was this sun. Li Mo only felt a great force pressing down from the top of his head. He had no time to react at all. He immediately felt his body lose weight and fell to the ground. Bang! With a loud bang, Li Mo fell heavily to the ground. The fire shield on his body shook a few times, but fortunately it was not destroyed. Just as he was about to get up, Sun Qingyang's long sword was already against him. Although he still couldn't pierce his fire shield, the spiritual power that came through the sword made it impossible for him to get up. Tell me, who are you and why did you attack me? Sun Qingyang asked with a smile. Since this is Chuzhu, she doesn't need to keep a straight face like she did in Wanjian Mountain every day, and she seems to have no murderous aura at all. But Li Mo felt that there was a knife hidden in this woman's smile. Since he couldn't escape, he just made up his mind and said, "Since you came to kill me, why did you take off your pants to fart and ask this question?" I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 295. Li Mo felt that he was bound to die, so he didn't care whether he would anger Sun Qingyang or not. Since I can't save Daiojo, I might as well die. What's the point of living? It's better to enjoy your mouth before you die. Sun Qingyang frowned. She didn't want to kill Li Mo, so when Li Mo made a sneak attack earlier, she asked why Li Mo attacked her. Of course, the main reason was not that he couldn't beat Li Mo, but that he was unfamiliar with the place and he was afraid that if he beat the younger one, the older one would come. But after knowing that this was Chuzhu, he wanted to find out some useful information from Li Mo so as to find Zhu Yun. She didn't know whether Zhu Yun would be teleported here, but she still had such a hope in her heart when she also came through the teleportation array. What if? It was just that Li Mo's attitude was so uncooperative at this time, which made her angry. Sun Qingyang snorted coldly, retracted the sword a little, and kicked Li Mo suddenly with her right foot. Then she turned the sword sideways and slapped his butt hard with the side of the sword. Although there was still a fire shield between them, this blow was even more painful than hitting him in the face. You woman, you have the guts to kill me. Is this how your silver sword sect humiliates people? Li Mo shouted angrily. Silver sword sect. Suddenly, Sun Qingyang stopped and couldn't help but ask. Humph, don't pretend like this. I didn't know you were from the silver sword sect. My father said that women from the silver sword sect are both beautiful and deceptive. Li Mo roared. Sun Qingyang was at a loss of whether to laugh or cry. Is this a compliment or a curse? But obviously, at this moment, she knew why Li Mo attacked her, so she took the sword back, took a few steps back, and then said, I am not from the silver sword sect, nor do I have to lie to you. I came here just to find someone. I don't know if you have seen him. Li Mo obviously didn't believe it, turned over and said, my father has told me since I was a child that the biggest enemy of our Li family is your Silver Sword sect. And the women of the Silver Sword sect have three things: they are beautiful, use swords, and lie. Continuous articles. Sun Qinyang was helpless. She couldn't say that she came here directly from Yazhu, and it was even more impossible for her to say that she was from Wanjian Mountain. She could only say seriously, I really came here to find someone, a male cultivator, who also likes me use a sword, and... Stop talking, Li Mo interrupted Sun Qinyang's words and said disdainfully, I won't believe a word you say. My father said that the more beautiful the Silver Sword sect woman is, the more likely she is to lie. Anyway, I will, but if you can, kill me. When Sun Qinyang saw Li Mo being so stubborn, she immediately said angrily, why should I kill you? I just want to find someone to find out some information from you. As long as you answer a few questions from me, I will leave immediately. Li Mo was even more disdainful and said, don't be ridiculous, you will find a volcano when you come to find me. You are a sword cultivator, not a fire spell practitioner. Sun Qinyang was so angry that she stamped her feet, feeling that Li Mo was almost the same as Zuyun. It's just that Zuyun is like a wooden man in some aspects. Okay, I won't talk to you anymore. Tell me how to get to the nearest city, and I'll leave immediately. She gave up the idea of asking for information from Li Mo. Furthermore, she didn't think she could get any useful information from Li Mo. Moreover, killing Li Mo would also cost her a lot of spiritual energy and time, and Sun Qinyang didn't want to delay it. Humph, just keep acting. Li Mo sneered in his heart, pointed to the north, and said, there is 1,000 of miles away. When Sun Qinyang heard that it was so far away, she didn't bother to talk nonsense to Li Mo and flew towards the north. This time, it was Li Mo's turn to be dumbfounded. Hey, is he really not from the Silver Sword sect to find me and leave home? After being stunned for a moment, Sun Qinyang only had a small dot left. Li Mo scratched his head and murmured to himself, we can't go to Scarlet Flame City now. If this woman gets in and can't get out, we'll be in trouble. Thinking that he had almost misunderstood Sun Qinyang and might put her in danger, Li Mo followed quickly. Hey, wait. Listening to the voice coming from behind, Sun Qinyang frowned and stopped, turned around and shouted, if you have something to say, you will fart. This guy is so stupid, he kept shouting at me to kill him. If I don't kill you, you'll follow me again. You can't go to Scarlet Flame City. Li Mo shook his head and said. Sun Qinyang said dissatisfied, didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't even ask. You just said to go to the nearest city. Scarlet Flame City is indeed the closest to here. Seeing Sun Qinyang like this, Li Mo couldn't help but shrink his neck and couldn't help but touch his back with his hands. For some reason, he remembered that his butt had been slapped several times just now. Then where can I go to get information? Sun Qinyang suppressed the anger in her heart and her chest heaved. No way. If he beat this idiot now, he would probably scream for him to kill him again. But what Li Mo said next made Sun Qinyang want to strike him down with a sword. I have no idea. Li Mo answered simply and neatly. Sun Qinyang laughed angrily, then why did you ask me to stop? Aren't I afraid that you won't be able to get out after you go to Scarlet Flame City? Li Mo subconsciously stepped back a few steps, and then stopped when he felt that Sun Qinyang's spiritual sword was not long enough to reach him. Suddenly, Sun Qinyang's anger disappeared without a trace. She finally understood. This stupidity is really stupid. He looks like he has never seen the world before. She knows nothing and has no experience in fighting. He wasted his Jindan stage. It's a good thing that you met me now, so you wouldn't kill people randomly. I'm unfamiliar with this place, can you accompany me to find someone? I can give you some spirit stones. Sun Qinyang only had spirit stones on her, which were given to her by Elder Xianxia. There were thousands of them. When he heard that she wanted to enter the forbidden area for retreat and cultivation, Xianxia did not hesitate. In addition to spirit stones, there were also some elixirs. However, when you are away from home, elixirs are more difficult to obtain than spirit stones. Apart from that, she had nothing else. Spirit stones. Li Mo had suffered enough from not having spirit stones these days. When he heard that Sun Qinyang gave him spirit stones, his eyes lit up. But soon, he waved his hand and said, I am also in a hurry to find someone, I can't go with you to find someone. Where are you going to find someone? Sun Qinyang asked, who are you looking for? I. Li Mo wanted to refuse, but his eyes turned, thinking that it would be safer for him to save Zuyun alone than to go with two people, right? Besides, this woman is stronger than himself. As long as he is promised benefits, maybe she will come with him. I'm looking for my friend is very powerful. Aren't you looking for someone too? He has a flying boat that can fly as fast as the Jindan stage with only spirit stones. It happens that you also have spirit stones. When you find him, the two of us will help you find him together. There is strength in numbers. Sun Qinyang laughed dumbly, but then her face became strange again. Didn't Zuyun also have a flying boat that uses spirit stones? I gave it to him myself. Is your friend a boy? Sun Qinyang asked immediately. Yes, my boyfriend. Li Mo nodded and said hurriedly. Does he have sword-like eyebrows and star-like eyes, and look like he's in his 20s? He also likes to use swords. Sun Qinyang began to describe Zuyun's appearance and characteristics. Li Mo didn't listen carefully. Anyway, he wanted to trick Sun Qinyang over first, so he nodded like garlic paste. Sun Qinyang's breathing gradually became rapid. Then do you know where he is? Of course I know. He's in the 10,000 mountains. We'll definitely find him if we search around. Li Mo just wanted to avoid saying that Zuyun was being hunted by a group of Jindan stage cultivators, otherwise, Sun Qinyang would definitely not dare to go over. At this moment, he only wanted to save Zuyun. As for other people, what does it matter? In other words, he has become obsessed now. As long as he can save Zuyun, he can ignore his own life and death, so why would he care about others? 10,000 mountains. Sun Qinyang frowned. Jian Tianming's memory told her that it was the place with the most monsters in the entire Yao realm, and there would be beast tides at any time. But Sun Qinyang, who also wanted to find Zuyun, did not hesitate at all. Let's go, let's find your friend first, maybe he is my friend. Sun Qinyang signaled Li Mo to lead the way. Li Mo was overjoyed and flew to the west immediately. In this way, there is one more hope to rescue fellow Daoist Zhou. As for what he would encounter and what the consequences would be, he had never considered it at all. And Zuyun had no idea that two people who should have no intersection had come together. Several days in the outside world, almost more than a month in the ranch. He has been deadlocked with Wang Jianren's golden elixir without moving, and his patience has been completely exhausted. He decided to take the initiative. Under the gaze of Zhao Kamang and others, Zuyun's slightly hoarse voice sounded. Burning Sky Flame. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 296. As Zuyun's voice fell, Fen Tianyan suddenly jumped up from Zuyun's palm. The fire flickered, seemingly weak, but it contained terrifying power. Wang Jianren, who was hiding in Xiao Brown's belly, was suddenly shocked. As a peak person in the late stage of elixir formation, he certainly knows that spiritual fire is the nemesis of golden elixirs like theirs. But what is even more surprising is that the fire is a heavenly fire, but Zuyun is only in the foundation building period. A wave of greed arose in Wang Jianren's heart, and he quickly made a decision. Little fellow Taoist, do you think this spiritual fire can hurt me? Wang Jianren was so shrewd. He knew that Zhu Yongku had been standing there for so long and was worried about him. He didn't sacrifice the sky fire until now. It was obviously out of kindness that he didn't want to burn the spirit horse to death with him. And he bet Zuyun that he didn't know that he was holding a sky fire. Sure enough, Zuyun frowned when he heard this. He was indeed not completely sure that he could burn Wang Jianren to death without harming Xiao Zong. This is different from the golden elixir he used to burn Ju with the burning sky flame. It is also different from the soul imprint he left behind when he burned himself and swallowed the soul control pill. Because Wang Jianren's golden elixir didn't stay motionless in Little Brown's belly. Even if it doesn't burn you, it can still seriously injure you. Zuyun was silent for a moment and then said seriously. Wang Jianren can look at the situation, and of course he will too. Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist, yes, you can seriously injure me, but can you guarantee that you will burn me to death? I am also at the peak of the late stage of pill formation after all. Wang Jianren revealed extremely strong self-confidence. What on earth do you want to say? Zuyun guessed that Wang Jianren must be afraid of his heavenly fire, but he did not guess that Wang Jianren wanted to seize his heavenly fire. But the premise is that Wang Jianren must come out of the horse's belly first. Little fellow Taoist, you and I have been in a stalemate for so long, which has affected your cultivation and my recovery. Besides, there is no enmity between you and me, and I didn't know that this horse was your spiritual beast. So it's all a misunderstanding. Wang Jianren said with a smile. The purpose was to make Zuyun relax his vigilance. However, he has given up the plan of possessing Zuyun for the time being. After all, the sky fire is in his body. If he is not careful, he will be burned to death by Zuyun in his body. The gain outweighs the loss. Then you come out first. Zuyun's eyes flashed. The reason was that he was really worried about hurting Xiao Brown. If he could trick Wang Jianren out, he would have no worries anymore. At the same time, he did not refute Wang Jianren's words of no hatred. Just to confuse Wang Jianren. If he were somewhere else, Zuyun might not be able to recognize him. But this is in the secret realm, and Luo Yanran has left. Who else is there besides him, Wang Jianren? So he also cooperated with Wang Jianren and pretended to know nothing. Little fellow Taoist, it's okay for me to come out, but as soon as I come out, you'll hurt me with that spiritual fire. What should I do? Wang Jianren is also shrewd. Then I'll take a few steps back. With that said, Zuyun actually led Zhao Kamang and the others out half a mile away, and then said loudly, "Senior, you can come out. But remember, don't hurt my spirit beast." Well. Wang Jianren was overjoyed. As long as he left the horse's belly, the sky and the earth were vast. Why not let him move around? As long as you find the right opportunity, you can sneak back. Not only can he seize this body, but he can also use the heavenly fire for his own use. Wang Jianren, who had been suppressed in the horse's belly, only knew that he was still in the secret realm, but did not know that the secret realm had actually become Zuyun's pasture. In order to avoid irritating Zuyun to take action against him, Wang Jianren also moved the golden elixir carefully, and finally it flew out of Xiaozong's throat. Seeing that Zuyun did not move, he breathed a long sigh of relief and said loudly, "Little fellow Taoist, see you later." With that said, he randomly found a direction and flew away. It took a lot of effort for him to break through Xiao Zong's suppression. Seeing the golden light disappear, Zuyun looked at Xiao Zong. Seeing that it slowly regained consciousness, he couldn't help but feel relieved. But then, he sneered and said to the monsters and beasts, "You all come here." Ho ho ho. Zhao Kamang also knew that when Zuyun was in human form, no one except himself and Sangu could understand what he said, so he helped to relay it. Sangu barked twice, urging Little Gray and Little Brown. "Come around with the red candle beast." Zuyun nodded slightly and surrounded them all with his spiritual consciousness. Then with a thought, he took them away from the ranch and appeared in the small wooden house. Then, he silently recited the second level of the golden escape technique and turned into a metal or spirit. "You stay in this courtyard and don't leave, remember." Zhao Kamang said quickly, "Master, are you going to kill that Danja period?" Sangu said with some worry, "Master, I can smell it, it is the peak of the late stage of pill formation." "Is it too powerful?" The red candle beast expressed its loyalty and said in a very fanatical voice, "Master, I will go with you and spray him with fire." Xiao Hui tilted his head, not understanding, while Xiao Brown was extremely moved and said, "Master, you are so kind to me. I will definitely reincarnate as a human being in my next life and work as a cow and a horse for you." Zuyun's mouth twitched, not knowing what to say. The good atmosphere was ruined by Xiao Chuang. It's helpless, although it can open up spiritual intelligence, it is no different from a child. In short, you stay in this small courtyard and cannot leave here. After leaving the small courtyard of the wooden house, you can see the alchemy room, medicine garden, and cave. Moreover, although these three places plus the wooden courtyard are connected together, the entire space in the mirror is wrapped in white mist. Zuyun had suffered a loss once in this white mist. Even when the fusion was still a secret pasture, he felt that there was a void space in the white mist. If you go in, you won't be able to find it. "Yes, Master." A group of monsters and beasts, plus the human demon Zhao Kamang and the demon three dogs shouted in unison. Only then did Zuyun duck into the pasture again. Taking out the spirit sword, he stepped forward and chased in the direction Wang Jianren left. And at this time, Wang Jianren felt the rich spiritual power in the air and looked for a place to hide while flying. He needs to fully recover his spiritual power. However, flying all the way, you can see that it is basically a large grassland. Unknowingly, he flew to the side of the crater blown by the self-destruction array, and couldn't help but feel overjoyed. "This is a good place. Let's hide in there first. After I recover my spiritual power, I will go find that kid and find an opportunity to seize his body." Wang Jianren flew to the bottom of the pit and began to slowly absorb spiritual power. It's just a golden elixir, but it doesn't absorb spiritual power very quickly. But he was in no hurry. After staying in the secret realm for thousands of years, it is not less than this time and a half. He didn't know that the secret realm belonged to Zuyun. Moreover, Zuyun was on his way to kill him. The self-righteous Wang Jianren thought he had successfully deceived Zuyun, thinking that he might have a sky fire, and he couldn't help but feel excited. But the speed of recovery was not fast. After several hours, his spiritual power was restored to more than 10%. He was awakened by a roaring sound. "Someone is coming." Wang Jianren immediately stopped absorbing spiritual power and flew towards the top of the pit. In order to avoid being discovered, he still clung to the edge of the cave wall. The speed is not slow. He should be a monk in the foundation building stage. He can kill, but it will also consume some spiritual energy, so I won't care about it for now. Wang Jianren looked at Zuyun, who was flying quickly on top of the spiritual sword, and had no intention of taking action. Because Fen Tianyan was staying in the fire spirit beat at this time, he could not sense the heavenly fire aura on Zuyun. It wasn't until Zuyun landed that he realized that the person coming was actually Zuyun. Where's the aura of heavenly fire on this kid? Such a close distance made Wang Jianren feel strange and at the same time surprised. Is it because he didn't bring Tianhuo, or is there some other reason? Wang Jianren's heart was ready to move. For him, Skyfire is Zuyun's only means of harming him. Now that there is no Skyfire, can he take advantage of it and let the golden elixir directly attach to his body? Thinking of this, Wang Jianren became excited again. Wait until you take away his body, then collect the heavenly fire. This secret realm is so big, where else can Tianhuo go? Wang Jianren held his breath and watched Zuyun walk to the edge of the pothole, ready to go. As for Zuyun, he was completely unaware that Wang Jianren was already targeting him and was ready to take action at any time. Just when his body went around Wang Jianren, who was hiding on the edge of the pothole, Wang Jianren also moved. I saw a flash of golden light and quickly rushed towards Zuyun's lower back. "Gg, boy, your body is mine." As soon as he finished speaking, Jin Dan had already rushed into Zuyun's belly. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 297. Zuyun felt a pain in his lower back, and a powerful spiritual power surged in his danshan. He immediately knew that he had been plotted by Wang Jianren, and he couldn't help but be shocked. How could this old thing hide so deeply? Just as he was about to let Fen Tianyan come out of the fire spirit pearl, he heard Wang Jianren's wild laughter. "Ha ha ha, boy, there really is no heavenly fire in your danshan. Tell me where you hid the heavenly fire. Tell the truth and I will give you a pleasure." When he was in Xiao Zong's body, Wang Jianren had to be careful because he was afraid that if he was not careful, he would take Xiao Zong's body and turn him into a horse. But here with Zuyun, he didn't have any scruples at all. Hearing Wang Jianren's words, Zuyun immediately calmed down. He actually knew it was Tianhuo. "You said I was a Skyfire?" Zuyun asked calmly while forming a connection with Fen Tianyan. He didn't use Fen Tianyan much, but since Wang Jianren recognized it, he had to find the reason and avoid it. "It's not a big problem in Diwu Glazed Mirror. How about going to Peeper Realm later?" "Boy, of course I recognize Tianhuo," Wang Jianren said with a proud smile. "Skyfire has a unique aura, but in the entire Yezhu, I, Wang Jianren, am the only one who recognizes it." Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief and deliberately pretended to be indifferent. "Nonsense, this is earth fire, how can it be Skyfire?" Anyway, he only needed one thought to make Fen Tianyan rush into Danshan and burn Wang Jianren's golden elixir, so he didn't panic now. If Wang Jianren rushed into his body, immediately replaced his Danshan, and integrated spiritual consciousness into his Zifu, then he would have no resistance. It's a pity Wang Jianren didn't know that he was carrying the fire spirit pearl. And Fen Tianyan was hidden in it, not showing any breath. "Little guy, originally I couldn't tell anyone such a secret. But you will be a dead person soon, so there is no harm in telling you." Wang Jianren was overjoyed, more like showing off, and said, "The foundation of Wanjian Mountain is beyond your imagination. Among them is the sword forging method left by the ancestors, which uses heavenly fire. Among them, the characteristics of Skyfire are described in detail. However, these characteristics need to be recognized carefully. The method of forging swords? Is it used for refining weapons?" Zuyun is even more strange. He didn't know much about Wanjian Mountain. Apart from hearsay, I also learned a few things from De Go and Chen Hua. But they are just ordinary disciples in the foundation building stage. Even if they are the direct disciples of Elder Jian Shiba, what can they know? He was very surprised that Wang Jianshan could refine weapons. Sun Suanhua once said that people in Wanjian Mountain practice swords, but others do not. Or just get it ready-made. Just like they destroyed the Seven-Star Sect, apart from the fact that the Seven-Star Sect was wavering between the grudges between Yaluo Sect and Wanjian Mountain, the biggest reason was that they wanted to enslave all the Seven-Star Sect. But in the end, he only got the Zaofa Sect. "It's not about refining weapons," Wang Jianren said lightly, "everything is low grade, only the sword is high." The gate of my Wanjian mountain is on a sword. As long as I get the sky fire, I can reforge his sword, refining this magical weapon. If you do this, I, Wan Jianren, will dare to kill even the ancestor of nascent soul. At the end of the speech, Wan Jianren actually showed a strong confidence. But Zhu Yun was extremely frightened. Wan Jianchen is a sword, he knows it. Tang Tiangang said that this sword was originally the magical weapon of the ancestors of Wanjian Mountain, but it was smashed into the ground by Ye Yong with a hammer and could not be pulled out again. It turns out that it needs to be calcined by heavenly fire before it can be refined for one's own use. This is a shocking secret. Zhu Yun secretly smacked his tongue, but he couldn't help but have an idea. The Diwu glazed mirror became his natal magic weapon, but apart from being used as a space outside his body, it had no offensive or defensive purpose. To be honest, he still lacks a powerful magical weapon. If possible, would you use Fen Tianyan to refine the sword yourself? Wan Jianren is so confident that he dares to kill Yuanying with the power of his sword. In my own words. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun couldn't help but feel a little distracted. Boy, tell me quickly, where did you hide the sky fire? Wan Jianren's voice sounded again, and at the same time, the golden elixir also began to occupy Zhu Yun's dantian, slowly transforming into spiritual power and wrapping his Taoist platform in it. And Zhu Yun clearly felt that a force of soul was swimming towards his Zifu. Zhu Yun secretly thought that it was not good. He originally released the burning sky flame to directly burn Wan Jianren's golden elixir and his soul together. But at this time, the golden elixir was in his dantian, and his soul had already escaped. His own burning sky flame, can it be divided into two? Gritting his teeth, Zhu Yun felt that he couldn't wait any longer. In an instant, he made the decision to destroy the golden elixir first, and then destroy his soul. The sky fire is here. Zhu Yun shouted suddenly, and Fen Tianyan came out directly from his heart and burned straight into his dantian. At the same time, under his control, the chaotic spiritual power floating around the Taoist platform also began to fight back. Previously, Zhu Yun was also thinking of clichés, so he stayed still. But unexpectedly, Wan Jianren revealed a big secret, which really moved him. Boy, you are seeking death. His heart reached his dantian, and he was so close. As soon as he finished speaking, Fen Tianyan had already swept towards Wan Jianren's golden elixir. Wan Jianren reacted so quickly that he couldn't care less about his own golden elixir. Dantian was entangled in the spiritual power of chaos, and his soul also escaped in order to occupy Zhu Yun's Zifu. In other words, his golden elixir is now a dead object. Now if you want to survive, you can only give up the golden elixir and hide your soul in Zhu Yun's Zifu. It is best to merge with Zhu Yun's soul, so as to slowly eat away at it and finally occupy the body. However, it will take a long time for him to return to the peak of Danji. Zhu Yun only felt his head sinking, as if there was a person on his head, which added a lot of weight. But he has no way out. If he doesn't destroy the golden elixir, he will die. Burn it for me. Zhu Yun shouted angrily, and the chaotic spiritual power turned into pure fire power, and the fire power stored in the fire spirit beads also rushed out. Together with Fen Tianyan, this is simply the three fire surrounding golden pill. Zitsize. A strange sound came, the golden elixir was quickly burned, and the spiritual power hidden in it suddenly exploded in Zhu Yun's dantian, forming countless turbulent spiritual power, ravaging Zhu Yun's body. Zhu Yun snorted, but had no time to care. Instead, he quickly controlled Fen Tianyan and rushed into the Zi mansion. At this time, Wan Jianren was shrinking towards Zhu Yun's soul as if he was desperately trying to save his life. He was totally freaked out. Why couldn't he feel Fen Tianyan's breath? Why did the mixed spiritual power in Zhu Yun's dantian suddenly turn into such pure fire power, and why did he still have fire spiritual power in his heart? He doesn't know. All he knew was that he was dead. He originally thought that as long as his dantian lasted for a few breaths, he would be able to blend his soul with Zuyun. In this way, even if he has heavenly fire, he will not be able to hurt himself at all. Unless he dares to pay the price of self-harm of his soul. But then he would also become an idiot. But Wang Jianren never expected that Zuyun would destroy his golden elixir so quickly, and he would make a decisive decision. He would rather give up his body and be overwhelmed by his own spiritual power than destroy himself first. Little fellow Taoist, spare your life, spare your life. Wang Jianren watched in horror as Fen Tianyan was approaching him, not daring to make the slightest move. Spare your life? Wang Jianren, if you dare to take my body, you will die. Zuyun sneered and asked Fen Tianyan to rush over quickly. Wang Jianren screamed in panic and fled to the corner of Zifu, but this was Zuyun's territory, where could he hide? Zuyun is clear, Wang Jianren is even clearer. Little fellow Taoist, don't kill me. I'm willing to tell you a secret. All Wang Jianren can do now is information. Secret? Zuyun sneered, what's your secret? Tell me. Whatever you want to know, I can tell you. Wang Jianren huddled in the corner, shivering. Oh. Zuyun smiled contemptuously, and with a thought, Fen Tianyan turned into a fire net and wrapped it directly. Little fellow Taoist, little fellow deist. It's not that I won't tell you, I know too many secrets and I don't know which ones to tell. As soon as he said this, Zuyun immediately asked Fen Tianyan to stop. Like. Indeed. As the owner of Wanjian Mountain, an old monster who has lived in the outside world for nearly 1,000 years, I may be able to get more information from him. Then tell me what other treasures there are in Wanjian Mountain besides the sword. Zuyun thought that if he had the strength to take the sword, he must be able to grab other treasures, right? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 298. Originally, Zuyun had no interest in Wangji Unshan. After all, the names of those elders that he knew were all ranked at number 18. That was the elixir formation period. Even if he breaks through the Dan formation stage, he can still defeat the strong with the weak. Can it withstand so many pill forming periods? Impossible. Zuyun still has a good understanding of himself. Even when he learned that Wangji Unshan was actually a sword, he was not curious at all. Because Tang Tiangang said that no one in Wanjian Mountain could pull it out for so many years. Going by yourself is overestimating your capabilities. But now, Wang Jianren said that it can be refined with heavenly fire? He was immediately moved. And, the first thing that came to mind was Sun Qiniang. If Sun Qiniang agrees to help him, she can refine the sword without anyone noticing. Furthermore, Wang Jianren actually wanted to obliterate his soul and occupy his body. This was a deadly feud. Since they are mortal enemies, what else is there to say? Wang Jianren just wants to live at this time. The higher the realm of monks, the more afraid of death. He did not hesitate at all and said solemnly, swear, you will not kill me after I tell you. Okay, I swear. Zuyun sneered in his heart, even if you know my real name, so what? I Zuyun, I swear by the way of heaven, if Wang Jianren tells me about the remaining treasures of Wanjian Mountain, I will let him live. Otherwise, 5 thunders will strike the top, and the body will die. Hearing this, Wang Jianren finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, okay, little fellow Taoist, since you are so sincere, I will tell you. In the hilt of the sword, there is the sect master's hall. The sect master's hall is my sacred object from Wanjian Mountain. Holy object. This was not the first time Zuyun heard this word. The first fragment, the suicide note left by the leader of the 10,000 demon sect, was said to be a sacred object. The third fragment is the secret realm, a sacred object of Yaloo sect. Now, Wang Jianren also said that the holy object is also a fragment. Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but breathe a little faster. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, "What is the magical use of that holy object?" Fellow Taoist, that sacred object is also an independent space. And if you practice in it for 5 days, you will only be able to live in the outside world for 1 day. Suddenly, Zuyun felt as if he had been hit hard. It's true. There is also a fragment in Wanjian Mountain? There's nothing more to say, it must be taken. Zuyun said in a deep voice, "There is such a mysterious treasure? Then tell me, what is the scene in the sacred object space?" Fellow Taoist, do you know why Wanjian Mountain is named after this? Seeing that Zuyun was obviously moved, Wang Jianren was reluctant to give up, but in order to survive, he did not care too much, and even went so far as to try to attract Zuyun's interest. He said, "The space in the holy object is a mountain. And the flying flowers and plants growing on the mountain can be turned into swords. There is a sword pool on the mountainside. Soak in the sword pool and you can feel the boundless power of the sword. As long as you have a little understanding, you can help your swordsmanship greatly improve." Zuyun knew that every fragment was a part of the immortal mansion, and that piece of Wanjian Mountain. Is it a mountain? Back mountain? Zuyun shook the doubts out of his mind. He had no idea how to guess. As long as he got the fragments, he would know. However, he was quite interested in the sword pool. When using his sword moves, he only releases his sword energy. If you can understand the art of swordsmanship and get that sword, you will have many more methods in the future. Thinking of this, he was even more excited. "Little fellow Taoist, can you let me go now?" Wang Jianren said cautiously. "Certainly." Zuyun chuckled, looking indifferent, and said, "You can leave my body by yourself, wherever you want, it's up to you." "Thank you, fellow Taoist, you are such a good person. Wang Jianren just wants to survive now, and he can say anything good." Zuyun was even more disdainful. No wonder Meng Hui always said that the people in Wanjian Mountain were swordsmen. They were really mean. Wang Jianren only has his soul body left now. If he wants to survive, he can only choose to live in the body of a parasitic creature, and then slowly strengthen himself, and finally survive. After leaving Zuyun's body, Wang Jianren felt regret and hatred in his heart, secretly cursing himself for being so careless after staying in this secret realm for thousands of years. But the matter had come to this, and he had nothing to do. Even if you want to take revenge, you have to go back to Wanjian Mountain. After Zuyun saw him leaving, he left the ranch and returned to the courtyard. "You guys come with me." He shrouded the group with spiritual consciousness, and then Zuyun returned to the ranch again. He turned into a metal spirit body, pointed in the direction Wang Jianren left and said with a smile, "I destroyed the golden elixir just now, and only the soul body is left." Went in that direction. Sangha was surprised for a while and said, "Master, only the soul is left? Then you mean to let us kill him?" "The soul body can only attack the soul, but as long as it is not allowed to enter the body, there is no threat. Moreover, without the support of spiritual power, the speed of the soul body is also very slow. Unless Wang Jianren fights the loss of soul power." But at this time, he seemed to be sitting on his back. "Use a little less of your soul power. When it is used up, his soul will dissipate." Although Zuyun could leave Wang Jianren alone, he would eventually die. But the trouble was that he had to leave Zhao Kamang and the others outside the ranch, which was extremely inconvenient for everyone. "So, we still need to kill Wang Jianren's soul." He smiled at Sango and said, "I swear, I won't kill him." Zhao Kamang's eyes flashed, and he smiled and said, "Master, I'll go find him and have a good chat." After that, he winked at Sango and the red candle beast, and rushed out immediately. "Master, what are they going to do?" Xiao Zone was puzzled, and Xiao Hui said nothing. Zhu Yun showed a meaningful smile, patted Xiao Zong's horseback gently and said, "You just take good care of yourself." After that, Zhu Yun turned back into a human form, rode on Xiao Hui's back, motioned Xiao Zong to follow, and ran all the way to the lake. At this time, Zhao Kamang was running wildly, followed by the red candle beast, and Sango was a little slower, and his tongue was about to drag on the ground. But he still yelled, "Old Zhao, did you really find the old thing to chat? Old dog, when you have time, let the master hunt some brain-boosting things for you, and replenish your brain." Zhao Kamang said with disdain. "What do you mean?" The red candle beast just followed Zhao Kamang, and he didn't know what Zhao Kamang meant. Zhao Kamang saw that Sangu was struggling, so he slowed down a little and said, "The master said that the golden elixir only had a soul body left, and he must have fought with it, and in the end, no one could do anything to the other. Then he probably didn't want to waste time, so he swore to let the soul body go out. He didn't say to kill, nor did he say we couldn't kill. What's more, he didn't ask us to kill it." Zhao Kamang used to work for Tang Juyang, and he was also a leader in the southern market. How could he not understand what Zhu Yun meant? Sangu suddenly realized that he had become a human for hundreds of years, and when he was in the small market, he had heard many people swear, and some cultivators had asked him to swear. Naturally, he knew that Zhu Yun had sworn the oath of heaven. "Master is really good at playing." He sighed. Only the red candle beast didn't understand. Fortunately, Zhao Kamang also said to him, "When you meet that soul body later, burn it to death. As long as you can show your value, the master will definitely not treat you unfairly." The red candle beast agreed and nodded repeatedly. "Look, it's in front." At this time, the three dogs also suddenly spoke. Zhao Kamang and the red candle beast looked at the same time, and immediately saw a translucent figure, trembling and shrinking towards the grass. How could he not recognize these beasts? At that time, he was following Zhu Yun. "What are you doing here?" Wang Jianren felt something was wrong, and knew that he couldn't run away even if he wanted to, so he couldn't help shrinking his body and said, "Roar." Zhao Kamang could understand his words, but the only response was roar. They could communicate by themselves, but Wang Jianren didn't know what they meant. "Don't mess around, your master swore to the heaven that he would not kill me." Wang Jianren just shouted anxiously, but the red candle beast suddenly slapped out a palm. The claws were full of pure fire demon power. Wang Jianren was shocked and didn't dare to stay here. He condensed his body into the size of a bead and started to run for his life regardless of the loss of soul power. "Want to run?" Zhao Kamang snorted coldly, turned his head and said to the dog nose, "Do you remember his smell?" The dog nose retracted his tongue and said to himself, "I don't know if he has stayed in Xiaozong's ass, full of horse manure smell." Zhao Kamang laughed immediately. "Now, I know why there is a saying that a dog can't change its eating habits. Old Zhao, do you believe it or not, I will bite you." The three dogs were furious. This Zhao Kamang was making a veiled accusation, and dared to tease me at this time. Swearing and making a fuss, they still chased Wang Jianren slowly. No matter how fast it was, what did it matter? Can he still escape Sango's nose? Zhao Kamang was confident. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 299. Whenever Wang Jianren felt that he had escaped Zhao Kamang's pursuit, Zhao Kamang and the others will always appear behind him. The beads condensed by the soul become smaller and smaller due to the consumption of soul power. It is simply unsustainable. Wang Jianren tried it, using the soul beads to hide under the grass roots, but he was still found. At this time, no matter how much he wanted to fight to the death, there was nothing he could do. Burned by the red candle beast's hot fire, and slapped by Zhao Kamang's cold water. I was beaten 9 times each. Finally the soul dies. Master, fortunately you have lived up to your command. Zhao Kamang ran back to the edge of the lake and said to Zuyun. Are you sure you're dead? In order to facilitate communication, Zuyun turned into a metal spirit body again. Sangu said he couldn't smell it at all. Maybe the soul body can be shrunk to the extreme so that they can't see it. But there is no doubt about Sangu's sense of smell. Master, I really can't smell it at all. Sangu said with certainty. Thank you for your hard work. Zuyun smiled, went over and patted each one, and then said, I am also in a dangerous situation now, and I may not be able to take care of myself. You guys should practice well here, and I may call you out at any time to help. After hearing this, Zhao Kamang and others said in unison, Don't worry, Master, I will not give up even if I die. Okay, then I'll leave first. With that said, Zuyun left. However, as soon as he emerged from the wooden house, before even leaving the small courtyard, Zuyun's chest froze and he immediately vomited out blood. This was the internal injury caused to Wang Jianren by wreaking havoc in all directions when Wang Jianren's golden elixir was destroyed in his body. It's better to heal first. Zuyun sat down with a helpless look on his face and swallowed a red blood pill to dissolve the power of the medicine. Although the injury was not serious, no one was disturbing him here, and Zuyun was able to refine the medicine safely. But when all the medicine was absorbed, he found that it was of no use at all. The spiritual power in the elixir formation stage is too strong. After all this time, those spiritual powers are still destroying his body. He just finished healing here, and was destroyed again over there. It was good over there, but it was destroyed again. It seems that the only way to solve this problem is to prevent the destruction of these spiritual powers. Zuyun found the crux and began to activate the chaotic spiritual power, preparing to drive the remaining spiritual power out of the body bit by bit. But it took half an hour, and Zuyun just saw the cunningness of these spiritual powers. Even during the driving, these spiritual powers will instinctively escape. It is too small, countless times thinner and more flexible than the spiritual power coming from him. Moreover, while escaping, his body was damaged, which actually aggravated Zuyun's injuries. I can't drive them away. Do they really want to stay in my body? Zuyun was furious and said, if that's the case, then don't leave. After making the decision, Zuyun aimed at a trace of spiritual power, and with a movement of his mind, he transformed the chaotic spiritual power into 5 rays and surrounded them one by one. The reason why he didn't do this before was because he didn't have enough control and it would consume a lot of his soul power. But at this time, if I don't drive away these spiritual powers, will I still survive? The worst thing is, just get some more sleep. Zuyun didn't know how long he could hold on. The 5 spiritual powers quickly swallowed up the spiritual power under his control. Immediately, Zuyun aimed at another recent spiritual power. Swallow it. Swallow it. Swallow it. Over and over again, it was only when the chaotic spiritual power he controlled swallowed up all external spiritual power that he felt a little tired. It's strange, did you consume so little soul power this time? There was doubt in his heart, but he didn't think much about it. The most important thing right now was to refine all these spiritual powers for his own use. Fortunately, he didn't know what side effects this would have. Otherwise, he would never dare. According to common sense, spiritual power that has been refined by others cannot be used by oneself. Unless there is a special method. But usually, this method is used by people in the devil's path. If you can absorb spiritual power for your own use, if you can absorb 10 or 8, wouldn't it be much faster than practicing on your own? But in fact, This method has quick results, but it has great disadvantages. Even people with different spiritual roots have different spiritual powers in their bodies. Unless the spiritual powers of monks with the same spiritual roots are absorbed, these spiritual powers will not be repulsive. The more people it sucks, the more powerful the rejection will be in the body, and eventually it will explode and die. This is also the reason why this kind of method is difficult to survive in the world. Of course, there are talented people who have solved this problem, but how could they possibly teach others the method? In addition, it is actually very risky for Zuyun to use the realm of the foundation building stage to refine the spiritual power of the pill formation stage. The level of spiritual power is completely different. The spiritual power in the pill forming stage is even more pure. This kind of rejection will be more severe, and the risk of death will be even greater. But fortunately, Zuyun didn't know. Unfortunately for him, he practices the 5 elements Chaos Sutra, and all spiritual power is stored in his body as chaotic spiritual power. Chaos spiritual power can be transformed into any type of pure spiritual power. Similarly, it can also turn all the spiritual power of other attributes into chaotic spiritual power. For Zuyun at this time, these spiritual powers make no difference to him. After he started practicing the Qi refining technique in the foundation establishment stage, the chaotic spiritual power, along with Wan Jianren's spiritual power, began to travel along the meridians. Days a week. 2 weeks. 3 weeks. Under the package of chaotic spiritual power, not only can the foreign spiritual power not move, but it is also slowly assimilated by the chaotic spiritual power. And unknowingly, Zuyun refined all the spiritual power. What surprised him even more was that the chaotic spiritual power actually increased by more than 30%. Before he could finish his work, a very subtle change suddenly occurred in his body. The Taoist platform hanging in the Danshan actually produced an inconspicuous vortex. It turned out that the spiritual power of chaos was swirling around. But at this time, the Taoist platform actually wanted to absorb the spiritual power of chaos into it. Zuyun couldn't believe the sudden change. This is too. Has there been a breakthrough? Small realm breakthroughs vary from person to person, but most of them occur with minimal movement. Only when a great realm is broken through, the body will absorb spiritual power crazily. Therefore, once a spiritual vortex is discovered in the outside world, where the vortex is, someone has broken through to a great realm. Just like Li Mo, his breakthrough in the volcano also caused quite a stir. Crazy absorption of spiritual power is one of its characteristics. After achieving the elixir formation period, spiritual power will be stored in the golden elixir. More, stronger, and purer. However, at this time, Zuyun was only in the late stage of foundation building and suddenly reached the peak. When the Taoist elixir is formed, the transformation naturally begins from the Taoist platform. But that's all. Unless you find an opportunity for a breakthrough, there will be a real breakthrough. What an unexpected bonus. After Zuyun saw that the Taoist platform had no longer changed, he withdrew his consciousness from his body and slowly opened his eyes with an inexplicable expression. The moment Wan Jianren's spiritual power was completely enveloped by the spiritual power of chaos, his body recovered independently. And after he had refined his energy for countless weeks, his energy and spirit were at their peak. Draw some firebird charms first, and then make some preparations. Zuyun murmured and spent several hours using the spiritual power of chaos to transform into fire and charge 50 firebird talismans. Facing the possible peak of the pill formation stage, the damage of the quick bird talisman is obviously useless. After swallowing another breath-condensing pill and suppressing his breath at the early stage of foundation building, he dodged. The moment he left the day-glazed mirror, Zuyun immediately recited the golden escape technique silently. Before the person hit the ground, he had already turned into a stone with the same color as the dead leaves. I thought that even if there was a pill-forming period around him, With his speed and the ancient trees blocking the light, he would not be discovered. But the result is, there was silence all around, no one at all. No, where are the people? Zuyun frowned and did some math in his mind. Only then did he realize that he had been in the mirror for almost 2 months, while more than 10 days had passed outside. With the speed and patience of those in the pill formation stage, they would either go back or go deep into the 100,000 mountains. Zuyun thought for a moment and realized that Tang Tiangang was not that easy to deal with. As long as he didn't show up, he would definitely keep an eye on him. It just so happens that I have mastered the 5 elements escape technique. Why not go to the deepest part of the 100,000 mountains and take out the 10,000 formation tokens? Thinking of this, Zuyun had a smirk on his lips. As soon as his body flashed, he immediately turned into a metal spirit body and floated towards the west. Not only is his speed comparable to his immortality technique footwork, but he can't make any sound or leave any footprints. After flying for more than 10 days, Zuyun would stop and rest every time he passed through different terrains, and then change again. Otherwise, the different colors will make him easier to spot. It is with such care. I wish Xianxia will reach the depths of Shiwanda Mountain safely. Here, it is nearly 10,000 miles away from the outside. Just as he was about to enter the day-glazed mirror and take out the 10,000 formation tokens, a crisp female voice came from behind, scaring Zuyun into a cold sweat. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 300. Hey, are you here looking for death? The voice was a little childish and a little curious. But at this time, Zuyun felt like a thief who had just committed a robbery was discovered. After becoming a metal spirit, you cannot release your spiritual consciousness at all. Why do you say that? Zuyun didn't dare to move at this time and asked in a trembling voice, but he was actually prepared. If something went wrong behind him, he would have no choice but to run for his life. This 100,000 strong mountain is so weird that people coming from behind can't even feel a single sound. You are so stupid. You have just become a spirit, right? Don't you know this is the territory of our tribe? Our king doesn't like you metal spirits coming here. Clan, territory, king. Zuyun was stunned immediately. The person behind Ganqing was not a human being? Yes, I just came here to take a look. Zuyun said quickly. The voice chuckled and said, so I said you have just become a spirit, otherwise why would you be so unruly? You should leave quickly. When our tribe finds out, they will definitely arrest you and pickle you. Hearing this, Zuyunke breathed a sigh of relief and said, I'll leave right away. By the way, where are you going? That's not your territory. As he said that, he turned around and saw clearly that the person talking to him was actually a fox with 3 tails. Demon fox? Why are you staring at people like that? The demon fox said softly, forget it, you are a fool. You must have never seen our demon fox, otherwise you would not have come here. I'd better take you out of here first. Thank you. Zuyun came back to his senses, but felt surprised in his heart. Yunzhou Chronicles once mentioned that about the demon fox group, the realm is judged by the number of tails. 3 tails is equivalent to the foundation building period. In other words, this demon fox is not weak. By the way, what's your name? Do you have any family? The demon fox led Zuyun to the side and asked casually. Then he reacted suddenly, covered his mouth and said with a smile, I almost forgot, you metal spirits are the ones who jumped out of the stone. Of course you have no family, otherwise I won't come here anymore. Zuyun was speechless for a while. He couldn't continue what he said, so he had to say, yes, after I appeared spiritually, I wandered around, and I don't know how I ended up here. If I hadn't met you, you must have been arrested by your tribe. By the way, why are you here? He still doesn't know what this pickle means. Eat it pickled. Demon foxes don't eat meat. When will they eat metal spirits? Is it strange that I'm here? This is the territory of our demon fox. The king called me to patrol the mountain. Mountain patrol. Zuyun glanced back. At this time, he was at the bottom of two mountains. It was obvious that the territory the demon fox mentioned was the mountain behind him, and he secretly noted the location here. Then he asked, "Why are you patrolling the mountain? Do you demon foxes have any enemies?" "Of course." The demon fox showed an angry expression and said, "Some other ethnic groups often come to us to snatch our people back because of their physical strength. Once, I heard the elders of the tribe said that those demon tribes thought we were good looking and took them away. Sell it for food." "What?" Zuyun's eyes widened and he couldn't believe it. He didn't know much about monsters, and most of them were from books. Most of them still look at monsters from the perspective of the mortal world. Ordinary beasts capture other relatively small beasts, mostly for survival or to satisfy their appetites. But I have never heard of things like this between monsters. By the way, it's still for sale. Where to sell it? Of course you metal spirits don't know. We, the Demon Fox clan, are the most beautiful in Shiwen Mountain. Seeing the surprise in Zuyun's tone, the Demon Fox couldn't help but said angrily, "Our king said that if he was eaten due to lack of strength, he would endure it. The law of the jungle is the law for the survival of our demon beasts. But those ethnic groups, to sell us demon foxes to humans as pets. This is a shame and a disgrace." As he spoke, the demon fox's tone became more and more urgent, his eyes were full of anger, and his face was actually blushing under the fine hair. Zuyun was completely shocked. What happened to selling it to the human race? He had never seen or heard of such a thing in the three states of Yunyo and Chu. The demon fox said angrily, "They say they are pets, but in fact they are not those despicable humans. They force-feed our people the transformation pill and turn them into human forms for their pleasure. Our king said that when the time comes, I will fight my way out of the 100,000 mountains to the Peepa realm. If anyone buys our demon fox, I will destroy her 9 tribes. Zuyun felt like his brain couldn't turn around. He just came to Shiwanda Mountain to throw 10,000 formation orders, but he didn't expect to hear such shocking news. A monk in the Peepa realm buys a demon fox and feeds him the transformation pill. Sure enough, I still know too little. However, this demon fox is just an ordinary fox patrolling the mountains. How can he know so much?" He quickly said, "Stop talking about this matter. I'm not talking nonsense, so I'm just telling you. You are a metal spirit that has just become a spirit, and you have no father or mother. Who can you talk to?" The demon fox said nonchalantly. Zuyun's heart trembled. If she knew that she was from the human race, she might be chased by all the demon foxes. As expected, curiosity can kill people. The more you know, the faster you die. So he decided not to come to the Demon Fox Mountain again. "Thank you very much. By the way, haven't you left your territory yet?" "Not yet," the Demon Fox looked around, and then said, "But it's almost there. If you continue to walk 1 mile forward, you will reach the range of another mountain. Then I'll leave." Zuyun asked. "You go, remember not to run around. Those demon bears and demon tigers also like to catch metal spirits, and they can also exchange them for food. Especially for a fool like you who has just become a spirit." The demon fox stood up and waved his paw at Zuyun, as if saying goodbye to him. "Take care." Zuyun nodded and floated towards the mountain that the demon fox pointed to before. He no longer had the idea of going deep into the 10,000 mountains. As long as he climbed over this mountain, he threw away the 10,000 array order. What about looking for something about Yayong on the way was completely forgotten. This place is too scary. The demon beast is actually connected to the monks of Peepa realm. Just thinking about this, the demon fox suddenly called Zuyun, "By the way, my name is Qiuqi. If you are caught by other tribesmen, you can tell them my name, maybe they will let you go." Zuyun thought to himself, he might be broken. After all, even if I come back and pass by this place, I can't turn into a metal spirit. If I return to my original form, I dare not bet whether your demon king will hate me. Although he thought about it, Zuyun was still very grateful in his heart. This little demon fox is not bad. People are good at the beginning. Is it the same among the demons? Thank you. If I am caught, I will definitely tell you your name. Zuyun said seriously. Goodbye then. Qiuqi chuckled twice and turned to leave. But he didn't take 2 steps, and something strange happened. One of Qiuqi's tails was suddenly tied up by a noose, and the rope suddenly bounced up, lifting her upside down to a height of several feet. Then she was suspended in the air and swayed back and forth. Qiuqi felt dizzy and her demonic power was surging. She had never experienced such an experience before, and she couldn't help but scream in panic. Help, help. Zuyun secretly thought that it was not good. His father would also use this kind of trap, and the captured beasts usually couldn't break free. But Qiuqi was a demon fox, and even the demonic power couldn't break free. This trap was obviously set by a cultivator. But who was so brave that he dared to use such a thing at the foot of the demon fox mountain? This was obviously to capture them, and then, as Qiuqi said, sell them to Peeper Realm. Spirits can fly, and Zuyun flew up without hesitation and said, "Qiuqi, don't panic, I'll save you." After that, he reached out to untie the knot on the fox's tail. When he was still young, Zurong had helped to untie the wild animals caught with this kind of trap, so the knot was not difficult for him. But when Zuyun just touched the fox tail, he heard Qiuqi moaning, which frightened him so much that his hands trembled. Then he suddenly remembered that the Yunzhou Chronicle mentioned a point about the demon fox, that is, their tails not only represent the realm of strength, but also their weaknesses and sensitive places. But at this time, in order to save Qiuqi, Zuyun could not care too much. "Qiuqi, bear with it, it will be fine soon," he shouted in a low voice. "Ah, oh, Qiuqi's tone changed, but she knew that Zuyun was saving her, so she had to bear it no matter how uncomfortable it was. It was just that Zuyun had just untied the first knot, and several huge demonic auras immediately locked onto him. "Ha ha ha, caught a 3-tailed fox and a metal spirit? Brothers, you made a fortune today." As soon as the voice fell, 3 figures rushed out from the woods on the other side.